No, I'm going to clap, not you.
All right, Nadim, you do the clap.
I do the clap.
Yes.
Like that?
A little louder. Come on. More.
Well, I'm not as professional as you are.
But both of your shoulders are working.
Yeah.
One more time. That's it. Nadim Shehadi, welcome back to the
Thank you.
Beirut Banyan in Beit Miri.
Again.
Again.
Yes.
And thank you for always being an engaging guest, night and day, winter, spring, summer, fall, depending on the month or the week or even the day. It's always an honor that you let me into your home, and I get to record here. I enjoy coming up to visit you, and I enjoy poking you, and I know that you like to provoke your way. Long ago, you described yourself as a contrarian. This is
No, you described me as a contrarian.
Was that right?
Yes, you sort of exposed me to the world as
I exposed you, right. So then, what is the right word if it's not contrarian?
Maybe it is the right word, but I don't like it.
It has a pejorative sound to it?
No, actually, I don't mind pejorative words. I'm more allergic to positive words because demagogues use positive words. Demagogues are always try to take the moral high ground and use freedom and equality and all that. So
you prefer tyranny and
accountability. Accountability. It's.
We spoke a lot the last 2 years in particular about everything that was happening related to war, and we're going to talk this evening about an aspect of that, which is the post-war diplomacy that's happening. But I think what remains constant in our conversations beyond war is that maybe the narrative, the story, the wider story, the way you've framed it often in your writings, on your posts online, is that there's a misunderstanding, almost a self-sabotage element when it comes to accountability, or at least shining light on corruption the way we do in this country. And I don't want to speak on your behalf, but I've appreciated that you do have a different take than most people advocating reform measures in Lebanon. Now, in particular, not necessarily in war-related issues, not about Hezbollah, not about sub-state militia stuff, none of that. It has to do with economics and finance and the gap law and the banking sector, Riyad Saleh. There's a lot of things where you don't take a position that's friendly to the masses. I do look for your input when everyone else is saying the same thing. Now let's start by me putting you on the spot.
Okay, for a change.
For a change. Why are you so persistent in protecting the criminals?
The criminals, exactly, yes. I am accused of protecting the corrupt and being against, defending the corrupt, and especially those that are undefendable. Almost in a way.
You do have a reputation.
I have a reputation, yes.
I think a lot of it is sort of slapstick, but some of it sticks. Some of it.
Yes, no, it does, and I get lots of phone calls about it. But let me tell you, there are lots of sides to to corruption. One thing about corruption is, again, it's a positive word. It's a negative word. I mean. The fighting corruption, honesty, transparency, anti-corruption, accountability, all these are positive words. And corruption is the negative. And people do use positive words to justify themselves. And when it comes to corruption, most dictators use anti-corruption as their stepping stone to power. Stalin, Hitler, Saddam Hussein, even in Lebanon, we've had anti-corruption drives by Fuad Shahab, who got rid of all his all his rivals through that. So one has to be careful about anti-corruption. So as much as about corruption, about the use of, and also corruption is used also as a purge. You know, Bashar al-Assad used to purge people, accusing them of corruption and treason and all that. So, but once somebody raises the flag of corruption, everybody jumps and everybody claps and everybody wants to be transparent. You have to be careful about these things. So even the whistleblowers and those who call for accountability should be accountable.
In today's climate and the issues that we talk about, in particular now it's the GAP law and the procedure behind the GAP law. What do you find problematic in that sector? The way people talk about corruption and reform?
It's a diversion. I see it as a diversion from the real issues. And you know, there's a brilliant series which was banned in Lebanon for a while, and it's called Ibtasim Ayyuha General, and it's about the Syrian regime. And in one episode there's a huge scandal which is so public that it cannot be denied, and you have the president speaking to the head of the Mukhabarat. And the head of the Mukhabarat tells the president, "Don't worry, we can eclipse all this." And the president says, "But you can't. It's so much." So he says, "All you have to do is find one little lie and blow it up."
So what is the lie right now? And so, if there is more than one, who's blowing it up?
So sometimes I think it could be also in the case of Lebanon, it's not a conscious thing. We've become, I've written about this. I think we are a traumatized population from all these crises, and most of the time, the abused blame themselves for being abused. You deserve to be beaten, you deserve to be whatever. And so we've reached a stage where we're addicted to self-flagellation about us being corrupt.
Yes, I've read your work and your particular writings on trauma and psychological almost aspect to the story. But let's get a little more, let me push you as much as I can in this episode.
Yeah.
What is wrong with the current GAP law? I read as much as I could about the process behind it, the exchange that happened to a degree online.
Yes.
I think has more or less settled that this is the best of the options available.
No, it is. I'm for pushing the GAP law, because I think the 5 years, or 6 years now almost, of doing nothing is more harmful than having nothing.
So there's no lie in the process of getting to the GAP law.
No, but there is it's a legitimate ideological division, and it's based also on how you see the future of the country, and because everything we do now will shape the future of the country. So we could be going further downhill, we could never recover, or we could recover. And I do believe that we can recover. I believe that we can. There is the potential. We are unique. There's all these delusions that I have about the country, but the basic point, the basic point that separates the two sides, if you want, is about the responsibility of the state. So there are people. I mean, it was summarized brilliantly by one of the politicians that the state should pay what it can, and the banks should pay what they have to. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But it's not to repeat what we've talked about earlier.
Yes.
I want to push further, because you invited me to go further in this episode, and as much as I can.
On corruption.
On corruption.
Yeah.
In particular on corruption.
No, you see, basically
sorry, Nadim.
Yeah.
We have an ideological divide, And I think that's almost an intellectual exercise to a degree too.
Yeah.
How people look at Lebanon today, before, and after. You can almost have a philosophical engagement on that. But the current crop, the members in government that are using their tools, whatever they have, to get us out of this abyss.
Yeah.
Can we name specifics? So let me go. I'll name them. For example, the way the central bank governor is using his position right now, and his influence in decision making, in particular in negotiating on how the gap law looks. The Minister of Economy, Ahmed Absat, who was involved in this, Minister of Finance too. Everyone that has a say, and I think Nawaf Slim, Prime Minister, and the President too, at a certain point, they're all playing a role. And then you have, of course, the pushback coming from whether it's civil society or politicians in parliament. You have a battle underway, but I don't know where the lie is in this debate right now, the way you're describing it. So are there particular people that are sending the wrong message? Are there mistakes being made by people in power? Let's be as specific as we can.
Okay, so I don't think it's a lie, and I think both sides are legitimate. I mean, it's a legitimate difference of opinion, and I'm on one side. I'm not neutral in this. One side wants to rebuild the state. You know, you've had a complete collapse of everything. You're back to the drawing board. You're tabula rasa. What do you do forward? Do you learn from the past? Do you emulate the past? Do you go? There are people who prioritize rebuilding the state, reforming the political system, and getting rid of the old corrupt political elite and the bankers and all that.
Maybe not getting rid, more like
the Thawra slogans.
Holding them to account the way they see crimes being committed. Let's go there, because I think that's where the contention is.
It's exactly that.
So let's talk about
whether
these.
or whether you should. And there is also the question of accountability, whether you should spend the next 5 years witch hunting and pursuing people for. Some of these things are not even crimes. You know, there's the law and there is morality. Sometimes the law and morality do not coincide. I'm not being philosophical, but I'll tell you.
No, but let me make it specific.
If you were Catholic, there are 7 deadly sins. The 7 deadly sins, like lust and greed and pride and envy and laziness, and all these are deadly sins, but they're not crimes.
Let me make it transparent. What are the individuals doing wrong so that they don't match your expectation for how Lebanon should govern itself down the road? Can you at least name the positions? If it's not the individuals...
No, I'll tell you what the position... It's very simple. The position is... I mean, my extreme position is that we should take this opportunity to try and live without the state. Minimize the state. Because the state... I see the state as the problem. I see that the state overspent, the state overextended. This is on the financial and economic side. And the state was captured by the militia. And the militia, in a way, took over the country by capturing the state.
With the militia,
Hezbollah.
With Hezbollah now in a more defensive position. And
I don't think that necessarily that this is necessarily true. We are still in a situation where Hezbollah has the upper hand in the narrative. Its people still believe in it. The battle has not been won.
At the core of this debate is the problem that the state right now remains captured by that group.
Yes.
And and therefore, any state pursuit is problematic at its core, because it's
not even that. No, even I go further than that. I think this. I look at it as a global phenomenon, for the last 120 years, if you like, 170 years actually, 150, 70 years, the state and the role of the state is a very modern thing. It's post-World War II. States did not exist before the 1870s in a sense. The states are a new phenomenon in relative terms, and the role of the state in the economy is even newer, and it's failed. It's failed globally. What they are trying to do now, you have the whole of Europe in crisis, Germany, France, Britain, and the whole crisis is to do with the role of the state and the deficit and the debt and the inflation, the non-delivery of services.
Maybe I'm not asking the question right. I think I'm maybe missing it. I'm missing the thread.
Yeah.
We have a state and we have a new government.
Yeah.
And we can't simply pack up and go home in terms of how the state operates. It's not something, I don't think there's a choice to sort of let the state just simply vanish from the scene and
No, you're not getting me right. You're right. I'm not saying the state should vanish from the scene. I'm saying the state's role should be diminished.
But okay,
but in fact, the state now, the state doesn't even have a role, a positive role. The state
but
now
in that sense, Nadim, how does the IMF,
is a liability.
Sorry, Nadim, how would the IMF then negotiate with this? I mean,
well, the IMF, it's a very good question. The IMF is on the side of the state. Yeah. The IMF bureaucrats are very narrow-minded. They don't see beyond their terms of reference, and their terms of reference are fiscal and they want to achieve some sort of balance, fiscal balance and debt sustainability, and all these meaningless terms, which are very short-term, very accountant types. They're not about a vision of the future in the country.
Okay, so to get you right, everything is going wrong in terms of the story right now on reform and economic viability.
No, not everything. I mean, it's not that bad. There are two sides.
There are two sides, but I need to.
One side wants to revive a state that is failing everywhere else. They want a state that will protect individuals economically, that will have social services.
Okay,
so you see it in debates all the time that people think it's a liability that Lebanon has 80% of the education is private. I think it's an asset.
Let me ask you, of all the books you have and the Lebanese historians you read, the historians that write about this country, do you have a preferred author that you recommend?
You get a bit from everyone, Mahek. And I was very close to Kamal Salibi, to Albert Harani, to Layla Fawaz, to all these people, and you learn something from every person.
Do you have one book that you often reread?
No.
Once you're done, you're done.
Actually, I very rarely read a book from beginning to end. I don't think it's...
Now, an odd question. Have you read something recently that struck you as an impressive work on Lebanon?
Yes, I've reread Kropotkin's History of the State. And I'm recommending it to everybody. It's an anarchist. It's a communist anarchist book, basically, which gives the perspective of the state, how it destroyed the pre-existing society, and I think there's a lot of lessons from it, especially for post-World War II.
You're oftentimes criticized for defending the figures that are deeply unpopular. And I'll give you a direct example. Not so much recently, but Riyad Salameh was getting, of course, a lot of hate. And you were one of those few voices saying, don't put all the blame on him, shift the blame elsewhere. When it comes to investment opportunities, the way the state expresses them, you've taken a position that it's the wrong time and it's the wrong setting for this type of investment opportunity. And you've oftentimes, I don't know if this is so much online, maybe this is reading between the lines, that you don't want an IMF deal.
No, I never said that.
You never said it, but I think I've extrapolated that you don't see the IMF deal as something that's needed.
No, IMF are bureaucrats, international bureaucrats. They're well-intentioned people. They're doing their job. Yes. They have a salary. They have a pension.
So in that case,
we don't have. They're not here to dictate to us what we want. If we can present them with a convincing plan, they will. We can have a strong position that can counter the IMF. I think people are abusing the IMF. They blame the IMF for things. No, this is the IMF, and if the IMF doesn't like it, then we're in. That's
so corruption, and I'm trying to deduct from this that corruption is not the issue. Simply that
corruption is a strong issue in Lebanon, but there are several complications. First of all, you see, the two narratives are that you and I and everybody in this area, in this country, are corrupt to the core. And the reason why we are in crisis is because we are so corrupt that we've stolen each other's money. The bankers and the politicians and even the voters. We're so corrupt that the country is bankrupt, and we deserve what we got, and we're hopeless, and there's nothing that can be done until we repent and reform ourselves. I
mean, that's taking it to maybe an extreme. I don't know if
it's not that much of an extreme. I mean, if you look at the Thawra narrative, at many.
No, I mean, okay, so it's hard.
So that's one side. The other side is
I don't know if that's the side. I think it's more that there are people that got away with a lot of criminal activity, and they're, I think, on the radar for fair reasons, not for wild, exaggerated reasons. In other words, I think it's safe to say Riyad Salemi is made problematic choices, and that's being sensitive. Yeah. That's being very, very fair.
This is obvious. He made problem. And he was in charge. Yeah.
Yeah, and therefore there should be accountability for his poor choices.
Sure.
Okay, so there's
not for his poor choices. He was doing his job. He's accused of corruption. If there is corruption, of course he has to be accountable for.
He's been accused all over the place, not necessarily now in Lebanon, but abroad. He's been.
No, some of these I've looked at some of these. Some of these are investigations. They could be based on something true, but investigations are not. That doesn't mean because. You can trigger investigations.
It's not about that. It's just even the small details which should not be even there. It's private apartments that are in the central bank's name.
Yes.
For mistresses and the like.
So he had a mistress.
Yeah, but not on our dime.
No, he had three actually.
But not on our.
Two is enough.
But it shouldn't be on our expense sheet.
Yes. Okay.
So in other words.
You see, that's what I mean by bringing up that scene from the Mukhabarat. Okay. From the series, you have a country that's collapsed. You have the extent of the collapse is about 100 to 120 billion, or whatever you want, however you want to calculate it. Yeah. You pick up. You want people to forget the collapse. The collapse is due almost 100% to the state. Okay, so you want people to forget the collapse. You pick on one small thing. You mentioned him, I didn't mention him. Riyad Salemi having hired an apartment where someone is staying that he has a relationship with. Okay,
that's one example.
But this is not one example. There was a time when everything was Riyad Salemi. And you go to a hairdresser salon in Ashrafiyeh and you ask your aunt what happened to your money, Riyad Salemi stole it. You know, there was this build-up where the story of Riyad Salemi covered everything else. And it's happening now with the Audi Bank. I mean, if you want to mention names, this is very harmful to attack a bank like this. It could be a hit job against Audi, and I've seen some of. I mean, you know, I mean, if there's anything, it's not contrarian. I never believe what I read, and I always my best friend is Google. So there was this story about transactions. I googled them. They've been blown up out of all proportions.
I can go with you down that road. That given the weight Hezbollah pressed on the state in every aspect, that these are crimes that are secondary.
Not even that. There is systemic corruption when a criminal organization takes over a state.
Right, but these.
So you consider and I think the best comparison, and there is so much relationship. It's such a rich comparison because the two are connected. Is the narco gangs
in South America.
In South America, the way they take over, you know, they compromise people, they involve them in corruption.
But what is wrong, Nadim, with saying that criminals under that umbrella are still criminals?
Sometimes you see,
even opponents to Hezbollah that work within the system
could be corrupt. Yes,
could also they can actually commit crimes.
Of course.
And many, I think many, if not all, to different degrees, played a role in that problem. And in other words, why absolve the criminals that were working knowingly with the problem? And I agree with you. Riyad Salemi should not be. He's not the only person in the tragedy. I know that.
No. I know. But you know what you're pointing out is a very, very interesting angle. let me put it this way. You have sometimes the difference between the victim and the perpetrator is a bit blurred. Let's assume you're a border guard on the Mexican border, yeah, and the cartel comes to and you refuse to let a truck go through. The second day, someone comes and praises your niece, the beautiful Maria, in the university. She's studying law. She has such a brilliant future. You understand that this is a threat. They're threatening you with your family. Mm-hmm. So the next time they come, you let them through. Then the second day, someone comes and gives you an envelope with $2,000 in it. You're part of the game. Yeah. So
I don't know, Nadim. An investment banker who comes back to the country to work his way up the chain and become a central bank governor knows better than to take bribes or to be threatened. Can simply resign.
I don't know about he cannot resign.
I mean,
no. Let's make one thing clear. A central bank governor does not
for
make
30 years has every opportunity to resign.
Does not make a central bank governor does not make monetary policy.
No, I know that, but I mean, rather than committing what looks like crimes, for 30 years has many exit routes, doesn't have to get into the victim side and being threatened. Okay, let me go back to my earlier point.
This is so interesting. I'll tell you why. Because you're hitting at the real core of the problem. You have a country that has collapsed. It has collapsed by constant battering over at least 20, 25 years. Yeah, you have. I mean, if you draw a timeline of what happened in this country with with the costing for each event, you will see how huge the problem the problem is.
Sure.
Yeah? And we are taking one person.
Yeah, you're right.
Who is a human.
Yeah, I agree with
you.
you.
Who made mistakes, who could not have, who made mistakes. You can quantify these mistakes.
I agree with you that
and many of the mistakes were not, standard banking operations, central banking operations.
Let's say, for example, right now, and I want to get back to really understanding your point in terms of the future of Lebanon, the way you've described the divide and narrative. What are the mistakes being made right now? The Minister of Economy, is he doing his job wrong? I know you don't really. It's not personal. It's the position. Is the Minister of Economy doing something wrong at the moment for the future of the country?
First of all, the Minister of Economy has no role in this.
I mean, he has a very heavy role in
No, he has a role in personally, but not as Minister of the Economy. He's influential. He's, I don't want to get into
but it's really hard to pin down this issue without understanding it in terms of the way individuals. Because I miss something when we talk about this. Rather than having it sort of a meta discussion.
Yeah.
In 2026, we have ministers that came with Nawaf Islam, and they tend to be lumped into this reformist camp.
Yes.
One of them is the Minister of Economy, and the Prime Minister, of course, Nawaf Islam.
Yeah.
I'm trying to figure out, okay, the future of Lebanon is at stake. What are they doing that doesn't meet your vision? What exactly are they doing wrong?
My vision doesn't matter.
Oh, sure it does. No, it does. Actually, I'll mention something. You're the only person I've seen who's been describing the weight of the army in terms of budget expense.
Of course, yes.
Yeah,
the army is unsustainable.
Yeah, and that's the talk
and
of
the army will not resolve the problem. There's no military solution for the problem in Lebanon.
And I think you've education. You've also included it sometimes in that army and education. Is it education?
No, it's not. It's not me. It's the budget. If you look at look at the budget, the Lebanese budget, say in 2018, the salary, the public sector salaries, 68% of the public sector salaries goes to the army and the security services.
Security services, and I hope I got this right. Once you included
17.5% go to education.
Right.
Teachers who don't teach. Many of them who don't teach. And the rest of the government, everything else, is 13.5%.
Right. So let me stick.
So there is an imbalance.
Yeah, let's use that though. Let's use that as an example because that's something that includes everyone, including the president. The army budget. No one's really talking about scaling it back or withdrawing. Or even,
on the contrary, they're talking about increasing it.
Right. I mean, so is that a particular example of what you think is wrong with the?
Yeah, I'll tell you what is wrong. It depends on your vision of the future. If you see the vision of the future as the current talk of having a peaceful region, then you don't need that much of an army. If you go into the narrative that you need an army to protect you from the Zionist enemy, you will never have an army that will be able to fight Israel on its own when the whole Arab world is making peace with Israel. So the way you view the army and the army budget and the expansion of the army is connected to your future vision of the country and its role in the region.
That's one big example of, therefore, the president missing the point, the whole entire diplomatic scene getting it wrong, the international preference to having a robust army that can inherit or dissolve Hezbollah, it's really like everyone's getting it wrong. And that's in that example.
According to me.
Yes, according to you.
I could be wrong too.
But I'm trying to, okay, so that's one example. The president,
So if...
sorry, the president, the government, and every player that is involved in geopolitics at the moment in Lebanon is getting it wrong. That's one great example, because that's true. The budget is extreme when it comes to army and security spending.
Even not just the budget, you're promising too much of the role of the state. The state will never either fight, the Lebanese army will never fight Israel. I can guarantee you that. The Lebanese army will never be the only army in the whole Arab world that's going to fight Israel. Yeah? Maybe you want it that way, maybe somebody wants it that way, maybe somebody is saying, unless you have a Lebanese army that can single-handedly fight Israel, I will never disarm. But that's the wrong argument. What we are asking for in aid, I mean, the president asked for it. He said he wanted $1 billion a year for the next 10 years to stabilize the country. Forget about the country if that's the case. This is not sustainable.
But I like that. That's a concrete example. But I think too many problematic people should not be off the hook because we can't hold the Iranian regime directly to account. And I think also that the current crop, even though they don't see the state's role the way you described it, I think they are there to resuscitate the state, not so much dominate. It's not so much a state-like authoritarian grip over society. I don't think of the crowd, I don't think of Nawaf Slem's government as this dictatorial sort of...
No. You see,
none of that.
No, you're putting it... The key element is trust. You have to bring trust back to the country. I've spoken with many, let's say, foreign diplomats or foreign politicians or who read the mainstream literature on the country, and they've come to the right conclusion based on that literature that this is just a rotten country. This is Sodom and Gomorrah. Why don't you just build a wall, isolated from the rest of the world, and we'll live better if we get rid of this cancer of a people and a society which is rotten to the core. This is what you get from the main. If you had a fictional character in a foreign ministry in Europe somewhere, I call him Lars, and he looks at the mainstream literature, this is the conclusion he will get, and I think it's the wrong conclusion.
For that reason, I'm glad you've inserted yourself into the debate for years now when it comes to really
I agitate, and I like people to rethink, and I hate consensus. That's one thing.
So you're the agitator, not the contrarian.
Maybe the agitator, yes.
Maybe online, there's that reputation of being the agitator. And whether it's a contrarian or agitator, I don't know, but let's say that applies to the digital space. Are there any authors that you find yourself almost inspired by to provoke, to agitate?
Actually, there was a book upstairs which has a interesting provenance. I'm not a Lebanese expert. I never studied Lebanon. I'm not a Lebanese historian. I'm an economist who studied the history of economic thought, and I'm interested in ideas, the evolution of ideas, and all that. And I was interested in how people come to be convinced of ideas so much that they stop questioning the thing, which is what happened in post-World War II, and when I was a student, we didn't question the body of ideas that came post-World War II in economics, and you have to keep questioning. That's my if you like, that's my motto. And you should never take ideas for granted. And when you have consensus and everybody believes in the same ideas, that's when it gets dangerous. You have to have a continuous questioning on. I was interested in how the body of economics got established, and I interviewed someone who was a student in the 1930s, and he said he gave up on academia when he saw that giants in the field like John Maynard Keynes and Friedrich von Hayek couldn't agree on economics, so what's the point? And so it shows you the limits of rationality. If there was proper rational behavior and scientific behavior, we would reach the same conclusions and yeah.
Well, what is agitating me at the moment, and this is a segue, is the discussion on Israel and Lebanese-Israeli relations, whether they're through armistice, whether they're through the mechanism, whether they're direct, later and bilateral. What agitates me is the silliness of the discussion, and it's coming from serious places. So it's not that this is just there to provoke and make you take sides, none of that. It's that I feel like with Hezbollah having lost some ground in terms of how Lebanon's security operates and the way Lebanese politics works when it comes to this issue, having lost quite a bit, people are now swinging in another very, very strange, almost extreme way that suddenly just, you need embassies, you need relations, and you can be best friends with the Israelis. And it's becoming mainstream. It started on the margins and it entered now mainstream to the point that television shows and television personalities talk about going to Jerusalem and wanting to visit Israel.
Yeah.
And I know this is not...
Who said that? I remember.
It's Marcel Ghanem.
Marcel Ghanem said he wants to go and pray in Jerusalem.
Yeah, and not just him. There's others too, and it almost...
I mean, if I prayed, maybe I would want to.
Yeah, and it's not to discount
This is why are you so surprised? You have a country in crisis. You have a polarity. Look at the United States. You have polarity. When you have a polarized society, people go to extreme. That's not the...
I'm surprised at how nobody seems to get it this is what I wanted to discuss with you. And I'd like you to tell me if I present the case the wrong way, if you disagree.
Okay.
I lean towards Michael Young in this discussion.
Yes.
And I'm going to best frame Michael Young as extremely skeptical. Yes. And maybe some would say even more than that, but I think he's very reluctant to put any trust into the Americans or the Israelis or the mechanism even, with the mechanism as it exists. And I don't think Michael Young is a fan of Hezbollah. If anything, he's been a constant critic.
Yeah.
He's actually written great pieces on...
Absolutely.
Actually, he was doing it when no one else was, on the need for Nawaf Slim to make this his urgent cause and mandate when he wasn't. And he's maintained that position. It's just been drowned recently by his sort of deep skepticism towards the Americans. And I lean in that direction more and more, in that I don't think Lebanon needs to sign a peace deal with Israel. And I don't think Lebanon should be pushed in that direction.
This is absurd. You can't push people to normalize. You can't force,
So do you think Michael Young is getting...
Listen, I read everything Michael writes, and I
too.
love reading everything Michael writes, because he's, I think, worse than me as a provocateur. And he is. He's brilliant. He writes far better.
I think he writes far better than anyone in the country.
Anyone else, and he writes so much, which is fantastic. He agitates. He's very useful, and he brings out the essence of the arguments. So, I mean, like you're referring to his last piece about normalization.
It's a string of pieces, but this last one in particular.
Yes, which caused a lot. No, that's very useful because it brings out the real issues. It brings out the essence of the debate, and the reality is that this is a purely internal issue in Lebanon. It has nothing to do with Israel and nothing to do with America and nothing to do with anybody else. We are using, we have a fundamental disagreement inside the country. It's not sectarian, it's not, and everything becomes part of the domestic debate because of our division. So the question of Hezbollah, the question of Israel, the question of negotiations, this is all internal in my view. This is part of our internal, and we use it against each other, which is fine as long as we realize this. When you realize this, you go back to what is reality. Reality is that you have a state called Israel and you have a state called Lebanon, and you have an armistice agreement from 1949 that no longer exists. It's been abrogated by Israel after 1967, and even if it hadn't...
or 83.
No, 67.
67. Okay.
In 1967, Israel abrogated all the armistice agreements with Lebanon, with Syria, with Jordan, and with Egypt, with all the bordering countries. And they've been replaced by bilateral agreements with Egypt, the peace agreement, and with Jordan, and the 1974 agreement with Assad. 1983
is the never implement fully.
Yes,
yeah,
would have been the Lebanon part. Yeah. So that failed, and so you have a vacuum in relations between two countries.
Right, but sorry, I think Michael Young has been criticized for exaggerating maybe the American-Israeli role in pushing Lebanon to normalize.
You know, this was the case in 1983 too.
That's the case in 1983. So
I've been reading some of the articles about 1983. So the Israelis were very ambitious.
Yeah.
To normalize with Lebanon, and Lebanon was not.
Right. I think his argument today, and I hope I get this right, it's that the Israelis are not interested in real peace, and the Americans are not pushing for that kind of arrangement, that this is going to become a sphere of influence for every actor in the region, and the Israelis will create that scenario in Lebanon. His argument is, of course, the Turks getting involved, Gulf states, the Israelis, and everyone will take sort of Lebanon on a road where there's no peace, but rather almost a fissure of society worsening and fracture.
I mean, this is...
It's an interesting...
It's a very powerful image that Michael draws that makes everybody think.
Okay, so
that's how I see it.
So let's use that as
I'm not going to speculate whether he means it or not, but I think this is what think pieces are about. So that's.
But let's use that as the possibility. Should there be a push towards normalization with Israel? It's impossible for me to see what the other side says. Other side meaning the proponents for peace with Israel. That you'll just have normal activity, normal economy. You'll have tourism on both sides. You'll have Israelis visiting Beirut and Lebanese visiting Tel Aviv, praying in Jerusalem. I can't see that. I simply, and it's not because I want Lebanon to be disadvantaged. On the contrary, it's just impossible for me to see that arrangement happening under these conditions.
Yeah.
Do you feel that way, or do you sense
No,
that?
I mean, after the war last year and the destruction of, again, it's an internal matter. There is no way that we can normalize with the present Israel after what happened when half the country has been, feels, it's an internal matter. It's not about us and it's an internal matter in Israel too. It's not, there's no such thing as an Israel that is pure evil. There is a government now that is quite evil and that's quite extreme and that's committing crimes but there can be another Israel, and there has been another Israel.
So you would
and there
lean,
can be another Lebanon also.
Sure, that's true. But you're leaning then, if I understood you right, in the current conditions are not conducive to.
No, of course not. I mean,
So
it's the same as I mean, there's a peace agreement between the state of Egypt and the state of Israel, but there's never been normalization as such.
Right.
Same with Jordan.
Right.
Whereas with the UAE, it's very different.
Reached startling, like it's
Absolutely,
stuck. Yeah, and it stuck through the war, and it continues.
Yeah.
I worry about the pendulum of overreacting to Hezbollah's defeat, that the voices pushing for peace at the moment push. The way you're saying it resonates with me, that it's an internal issue, and it polarizes Lebanese further than they need to be. When you have sectors going too fast and saying now's the time to make a peace deal, and it's worrisome almost that.
Why is it worrisome? I mean, you have a polarized society where people use Israel as part of their quarrel.
It's actually, I'll tell you why. It's looking at the Lebanese experience that Lebanon flourishes without relations with Israel, and it should technically be able to thrive without relations with Israel.
Why?
Because it has in the past. What I'm saying is,
but it was a different era. It was an era where everybody, the whole Arab world was at war with Israel, and the whole Arab world, as part of the atmosphere of nationalism and fighting Israel and all that, had these revolutions in the 50s and 60s and up to 1970, which drove the elite and the capital to Lebanon, and we benefited from this.
That today that we don't serve that function, which is true.
No, today this function is gone. Today, and it's the exact opposite. Today, everybody wants to make peace with Israel. But, we are we, for internal reasons, have a polarized discussion about Israel for purely internal matters, where the extreme of one side wants to be the only country in the whole world fighting Israel. Even Iran doesn't want to fight Israel. We want to fight Israel.
Wants to fight through us.
Yes, through us. And there's another side. There's another side which replies by saying, "I want to go to a concert in Tel Aviv tomorrow."
But I find, and the reason I use.
But we've beaten Tel Aviv anyway.
How so?
With concerts and with pinkwashing and
Well, I think exactly that's my point. That you don't need that relationship for Lebanon to be in a better situation right now. I actually think Lebanon's position is too weak at the moment to simply negotiate a hasty deal with the Israelis.
What's a hasty deal?
I
mean, what are we talking about? We're talking about replacing an armistice agreement of 1949 and replacing the 1983.
I wonder if it's more. I don't know if it's psychological too, but it's just knowing that for reasons that we talk about endlessly, that why the Israelis have bombed Lebanon so much in post-war Lebanon, let alone the civil war. We've dealt with war. We know the Israelis through war. We knew them last year through war. And for all the reasons we've discussed, I think that creates a problem. It's not a closure to what brought us to war. It's Hezbollah's defeated, now's the time. And I don't know if that's the right way to do it. But I would extend this further. I'm not comfortable having these kinds of relations with countries that have abused Lebanon too. I mean, it's terrible that we had relations with the Assad regime for so long and we had no embassy to even represent us in Damascus until 2008. We have weird relations with Iran. We're better off without relations with Iran. Instead, we host the Iranian foreign minister and all these ministers with their social media photos with the Iranian foreign minister visiting. There's no need for that. We don't need him here. Yet he's here and he's talking on behalf of Hezbollah.
Well, you need him here. Yeah.
But I could argue the case that I don't want the Israelis and I don't want the Iranians. I don't want any problematic country, sort of.
So you want to isolate, shut down your border, do nothing, have no relations with the outside world. We won't be able to go to any Arab country.
No, I think you can
No,
go.
you can't.
If you don't have relations with Iran.
In the current Lebanese laws, any and this is a new law, it's not.
No, it's not
any
that.
You're not allowed to have any contact with an Israeli. So if you go to Dubai, you attend a conference or you attend a function where there are Israelis, or if you go to Cairo, or if you go to almost anywhere in the Arab world now.
It's a peace deal with the Israelis still in the south post-war.
No, they're not in the south.
Of course they are.
Israel pulled out of South Lebanon.
They are. They're there post-war, post-2000.
Israel pulled out of South Lebanon in 2000.
I'm talking about right now.
Right now, there are 5 points where they're still there.
Yeah.
Post the last war.
Yeah, that's what I was referring to.
Which we did not need.
Yeah.
And we need to sort out the security situation and have another armistice agreement. Revive the old armistice agreement or replace it.
Yes, I think the step-by-step process makes more sense than jumping over and saying, get an embassy in Jerusalem tomorrow.
Who is saying get an embassy in Jerusalem?
Oh,
That's part of the internal discussion. If you're talking to someone who is for the resistance and wants Lebanon to be the only country with part of the now that the axis of resistance has collapsed, we will be the only country with then you provoke him by saying, I want an embassy in Jerusalem. This is not what the government is talking about. The government now is talking about ending the damage of the last war, which we did not want, which this government did not want. It's a peace that this government did not negotiate. It has to implement it. And it's going one step further, very correctly, to discuss the security arrangements. There is no talk, there's no official talk of peace. I may want peace, someone else may want peace, and the internal discussion, the peace with Israel is used as an issue for provoking each other, and fundamentally it's about the vision of the future. These are internal matters.
I'll ask one more question on this subject in terms of American positioning. And of course, we'll go back to Michael Young here. He's critical of American posture, I think, at large, not just in Lebanon.
No, he's critical of, not American posture, he's critical of two people, basically. Since you're naming, he's critical of Tom Barak, and he's critical of Morgan Ortagus.
That's American foreign policy at the moment when it comes to
Yeah.
Well, knowing that those two characters may not be involved in Lebanon at the moment. Tom Barak has been pushed aside. I don't know
if he's been pushed aside. Who said he's
on Lebanon? I don't think.
This is what you read in the press. I have no information. You have lots of analysts who.
Tom Barak has not made one visit to Lebanon since his last visit. So that to me indicates
that applies to any visit.
No, Ortega's came.
You cannot have more than one visit after the last visit because the next visit will be the last one.
Sorry. Yes.
You see,
It's been quite a while since he visited.
You miss him.
I have no love lost for Tom.
He's
Barak.
very busy with lots of other things.
Yeah, he is better.
It's no It doesn't. If Tom Barak hasn't been to Lebanon for 3 months, it doesn't mean that he's been isolated. I have no information. I'm just telling you that it doesn't mean that he's been isolated.
When I see that certain characters that were more involved sort of take a step back, whether by force or not, is secondary. Morgan Ortega's too. She's not attending the Mechanism meetings. She's not made a visit to the country in quite some time.
How long is quite some time?
What has it been, 3 months now?
3 months.
And she did not go to the last Mechanism meeting.
She had a hairdresser appointment.
But that was 2 times ago.
2 times ago,
Yeah.
Okay.
And the February one, it's not yet determined who's going to show up. But in that scene, Simon Karam himself said that the Americans are unrealistic in their expectations.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, and Michael Young has articulated in different ways, in different pieces, that the Americans are pushing a situation that can hurt Lebanon internally.
Yes, that's precisely the point.
Yeah.
It can hurt Lebanon internally.
So
it's nothing to, yeah.
Do you see that American role doing that too? That America, whether it's through Tom Barak, Morgan Ortegas, or whoever, is getting it wrong?
Listen, in my previous life, when I used to organize brainstorming meetings for a living, I always had an outsider in the meetings. I used to call him the village idiot. Yeah? And the village idiot performs a very useful role because he's someone who has no clue about the situation, comes and states things that are too obvious for people to think of. So, I mean, I used to bring very important professors and things like that to be the village idiot. It wasn't stupid people. And I think Tom Barak played that role here. He said things that stirred debate and that are not necessarily completely untrue.
He got so many things wrong that it made.
Like what?
168 members of parliament.
Yeah.
I mean, at least do some homework.
It's idiotic, yes.
Now this independence, he got the independence year wrong.
Yeah.
At least get the basics right. And also that he's third generation.
So he's the village idiot.
I like Zahle.
Who sounds like no clue.
I love
Zahle.
No clue. Yeah. As a Zahlewi, he should know more. That he also spoke so condescendingly about what America usually stands up for. I mean, this animalistic, whatever you want to call it, he got it wrong. He got freedom of expression and press and all that. He simply got it wrong. He sounded more like a jerk than a diplomat.
Like a village idiot, yeah.
So village idiot, okay. But I don't know if he played a good role in Lebanese politics. But that kind of position in terms of what Michael says is that they're pushing for a deal. So
you can't force.
You can't force it.
You can't force people to normalize.
Mm-hmm. So then the Americans are pushing for something that simply won't happen.
No, they're pushing for something. Something else will happen. Doesn't have to happen.
Can we project a bit?
If this is really their position, Why not? Even Tom Barak and Morgan Ortegas said, this is what you think. You take it. If you don't, we'll just go.
Right. That's what I wanted to wrap it up with. We'll just go.
Yeah.
I feared always, and I felt this way before the war. It's having lived through moments like this in not that long ago, where the Americans do cut and run, that I really feel like they can do this at any point. And if they don't get what they want from us, they will cut and run. Yeah. Who cares if there's an embassy expansion in Aukar or not? That doesn't matter. That's secondary. What matters is that the Americans will no longer be invested.
That was probably a real estate deal that underestimated.
Well, I understood it as inheriting other. This would be the base for the region. It's not.
No, not necessarily.
No.
This was built. I mean, this was conceived in the 80s.
Well, what it's turning into is quite the embassy. It's huge now.
Yeah, but
it's almost like it's a campus. It's not an embassy. But what I'm trying to say is that the Americans can do both. They can expand their embassy and give up on Lebanon again.
Yeah, they're completely different.
Right.
I mean, this is a real estate deal.
Yeah.
I don't think they have 5,000 people there.
I don't know what they're planning on, but I know they're building a lot. But
it's a budget. People have a budget and a plan, and they.
When you project that way, Americans giving up potentially, and then the Iranian regime not falling.
The Iranian regime what?
Not falling. It's still there.
Yeah.
And a Hezbollah that doesn't disarm. It simply doesn't budge. And an Israeli government, Netanyahu or otherwise, that will keep bombing Lebanon so long as there's an Iranian militia, Iranian-backed militia. I see that as a more likely finale to the story than relations with the Israelis or a prospering Lebanon without relations. I don't see, what I see is it's almost like the country just fails.
Let me tell you what conversation is not happening in the country, and I would love to see it. I'd love to see 5 people around the table representing different views, different visions of the future, and presenting it as a scenario. Yeah, going to the extreme logic of it, because in a clear and concise way, 16 pages at most with headlines and not. Because when you're having like our conversation now probably confused everybody, because we are countering each other without either of us making a clear position, and that's the conversation that's happening in the country about the gap law, about relations with Israel, about the future, about everything. So. I have never seen all these positions clearly stated, put against each other as a basis for looking the future. Yeah, to choose which one to, or to understand clearly what the options are. The Israelis did that when the peace process collapsed, and they chose unilateral separation. They said, "Forget about the Arabs, forget about the Palestinians. You can never force people to have peace with you. Let's build a wall and let's isolate and let's concentrate on tech." And that's what they.
And they voted that ideology.
They withdrew from. Gaza, they withdrew from the West Bank, they withdrew from Lebanon.
Well, they did not withdraw from the West Bank.
They did. At that time, they did. They went back again. Maybe. They went back again.
5 areas, but no, they never. Yeah. I mean, but okay. So you would rather. That's an interesting sort of taking scenarios and
yeah.
what.
That's what.
Well, maybe you would...
So what I mean is
Yeah.
that let someone have a very clear position on what the resistance angle is, rather than just counterpoints. Let someone else have a very clear position on what the peace scenario is.
Yeah.
Let someone have a very clear position on the future of the role of the state in Lebanon. Do we want the state that will control everything and that will own the banks? I provoke people by saying, yeah, this is what Saddam Hussein had. You had Bank al-Rashid and Bank al-Rafidain. Let's clarify these positions and have a proper discussion rather than point and counterpoint. You say I want resistance. I counter it by saying, yes, I want to go and live in Tel Aviv.
That's a good... Actually, I'll ask you to participate. You'll be the Ottoman.
I'll be the Ottoman, yes. No, I mean, I do think that we have a unique model in Lebanon. I think our model of coexistence can serve as a model for Syria, for Iraq, far better than they can serve as a model for us. And we need to discuss these things. Yeah.
If I do that, you'll have your place on the table reserved.
Thank you.
I'll ask you just to talk about one thing which we did not discuss before, but you just you mentioned it when we sat down. Any words of wisdom, because you're turning 70.
I'm turning 70.
And this episode will come out close to your birthday.
Close to my birthday. Yes.
So let's talk about this. Do you have anything to say?
Yes, I feel 85. I'm 70. When I was 69, I used to feel 50, but now I think
you jumped. So you skipped your 70s altogether. You have clearly seen a generational gap beyond the one after yours, which is my generation. That there's the young crowd who reference politics, history all the time, and I don't think they've read one book on this shelf.
Don't overestimate reading.
Yeah. So do you find that this has become, in a way, like almost a bygone way of learning about?
Yes. I mean, the millennials, whether they read books or not,
or even the Gen Z, the ones beyond millennials.
Yeah, and they tend to be very indoctrinated, and very there is that generation gap. I mean, the gap existed forever between generations. Imagine yourself in the 1920s with the roaring 20s and all that. The gap between that generation and the Victorians was huge, and the gap between the 1960s, you forget that every generation goes through this.
I look forward to talking to you throughout your 70s and 80s and 90s and beyond that.
Thank you.
Thanks, Nadim Shehadi.
Ahlin, you're welcome.